Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story is from alternative_site, 1468. AITA for not wanting my sister at my wedding, after she made it all about herself? I, 28F, am getting married in a few months to my wonderful fiancé Ethan, 30M. We've been together for 6 years, and I'm honestly over the moon about marrying him. We've been planning this wedding for the last year, and it's going to be a pretty intimate gathering with only close friends and family invited. Now, here's where things get complicated. I have a sister, Carly, 26F. Carly has always been a lot. She's outgoing, charismatic, and tends to be the life of the party, but she also has a habit of making everything about herself. I love her, but it's exhausting sometimes. Growing up, I was always the more introverted, quiet one, and I feel like Carly's bigger personality often overshadowed me. She never seemed to realize or care that sometimes I just wanted my own space to shine. Fast forward to last year, when Ethan proposed. I was ecstatic and couldn't wait to share the news with my family. When I told Carly, she seemed happy for me at first, but within a week of the proposal, she announced that she was going to start trying for a baby with her husband Mark, 29M. I didn't think much of it at the time, because I figured it was just a coincidence that she wanted to start a family around the same time I was planning my wedding. But then, over the next few months, every conversation we had become about Carly's baby journey, what ovulation tests she was using, how her doctor appointments were going, and what baby names she liked. Suddenly, my wedding didn't seem as important in comparison to her potential pregnancy. Then, about 3 months ago, Carly announced that she was pregnant. Again, I was thrilled for her. I love the idea of becoming an aunt. But what started as excitement quickly turned into frustration. Carly began monopolizing every family event with baby talk. When we went dress shopping for my wedding, she kept talking about how she hoped she wouldn't be too big to fit into her bridesmaid dress. At my bridal shower, she kept bringing up baby shower ideas. At one point, she even suggested we combine our events into one big celebration of love and life. I laughed it off at the time, but inside, I was fuming. This was supposed to be my moment, but somehow, Carly always found a way to steal the spotlight. Things reached a boiling point last week when we had a family dinner to finalize some wedding details. Carly, of course, was there, and once again, the conversation shifted to her pregnancy. She started talking about how she and Mark were thinking about having a gender reveal party on the same weekend as my wedding. She said it would be so fun because all the family would already be gathered, and it would be a 2-for-1 event. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wedding weekend, which I had spent months planning and saving for, was now being hijacked for Carly's gender reveal. I tried to politely tell her that I didn't think that was a good idea, and that the weekend was supposed to be about celebrating my marriage, not her baby. But she just laughed and said, "Oh, come on, it'll be fun. We'll be celebrating both of us." At that point, I snapped. I told her, in front of the whole family, that I was tired of her making everything about herself, and that my wedding day was supposed to be about me and Ethan, not her and her pregnancy. I said that if she couldn't respect that, she didn't need to come to the wedding at all. Carly started crying, saying I was being selfish and that I was overreacting because I was jealous of her pregnancy. She stormed out of the dinner, and now half my family is mad at me for making Carly feel bad when she's pregnant and emotional. Even my mom called me later to say that I should have handled it differently and that Carly didn't mean any harm. She's just excited about her baby. Ethan is 100% on my side and thinks Carly was being selfish, but I'm starting to second-guess myself. I know pregnancy hormones can make people act differently, and maybe I was too harsh. But at the same time, I feel like Carly has been making my wedding planning process so stressful, and I'm tired of feeling like I always come second to her. So, AITA for not wanting my sister at my wedding after she made it all about herself? Or am I overreacting and being too harsh on her? Update. My 18-year-old niece is engaged to a 36-year-old she started dating when she was 17. No one in the family sees a problem. I asked to meet her to talk about it. So following my text, see last post, Ella replied and told me she agreed to meet with me and talk. I just came back from seeing her. Here's how it went. She asked me what I wanted to tell her, and I started explaining that I didn't think her relationship was very healthy, and that no older guy should want to date a teenager. I told her that she was an incredible woman, so I wasn't saying it was weird that someone would want to marry her, but that guys my age normally shouldn't even look at a teenager. She wasn't convinced, and said that sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's okay. I asked her how she would feel if I told her that someone born today could be her future partner, and she said it felt really weird. I also asked her if she would consider dating someone younger than 15, and she said no. I could see her starting to realize that Mark maybe didn't have the best intentions. I also asked her if she knew about his previous relationship, and she said vaguely, and just told me the girl's name. I asked her if she knew how old the girl was, and she said she was 21. I also asked her if she knew that their relationships overlapped, and she said that Mark always told her he was single since they met, but she kind of felt like that wasn't true. I told her that since his previous girlfriend was also significantly younger, it seemed like he had a thing for younger girls, which is kind of weird. After discussing that, she told me a bit more about her relationship. She told me she was starting to feel weird about it because of Mark's recent behavior. I asked what she meant, and she said that he had been flirting with a lot of girls, who were all also younger, including some of Ella's friends. When she confronted him, he sorts of gaslit her into thinking it wasn't flirting. He was also making a lot of comments about having children with Ella and how cute it would be to see her raise them. She told me she was absolutely not ready for that and also wanted to go to college and work and not be a... Because of all of that, she was doubting her relationship, and I told her that I understood. She said she was scared of breaking up with him because he had become her whole life recently, and she didn't know what she would do without him. I told her that she was surrounded by people who loved her and would be there for her, and that she was a lot more than just Mark's girlfriend. I said that she knew my opinion on it, but that ultimately the choice was hers, and that I just wanted her to be happy. I also said I would be there for her no matter what. She told me that she will try to break up with him this week, and she'll let me know how it goes. I'll edit this post if I have more info. Also, again, thank you to everyone who gave advice and tried to help us. I really appreciate it. Edit. Okay, so I just want to say, some people in the comments seem to think that this is fake. And you know what? I can understand. And I don't really care. I'm not asking you to believe that my life is real or fake. And it's great that you don't just believe everything you see online. But I just want to say this. There are hundreds of people on here or elsewhere that share similar stories. I'm not really affected by people thinking I'm lying, mainly because I'm not the one in that situation. But some people might be. Some people come on here to share something that might have traumatized them, and the last thing they want is for others to think they're lying. So, if you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but the next time, keep that to yourself. It's fine to not believe something, but you don't have to say it, because it might make other people feel really bad. OP is not an AH for setting boundaries. It is unfair on the part of Carly to overshadow OP's wedding by revealing her child's gender on OP's wedding day. In fact, it is disrespectful and dismissive. OP's sister is behaving entitled and is an AH, so I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP is the victim of her sister's controlling and overwhelming behavior, so I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from Fluffbuffer 23. AITA for refusing to take care of my niece after she called me a slur? I, 29M, and my wife, 30F, have 2 kids, 5M, 3M. My wife works a full-time office job, while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. Basically, as long as I meet my deadlines, no one really cares how many hours it took or what time of day I work outside of some Zoom meetings. My sister, 26F, let's call her Barb, and her husband, 30M, let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter, 5F, let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we basically decided that I'll be dropping off and picking up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't really mind, and I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well, and always thought I was her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well-behaved. So anyway, most days I bring her and my kids back to our house, I make them snacks or dinner, and in the evening, my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago, the 5-year-old kids were watching Bluey on the TV as I was preparing snacks with my 3-yo, and I suddenly heard yelling. I rushed over to see what's up, and my son was yelling at her that my dad's not a girl. While my niece yells back, he's that's like a girl. The word is different in my language, but the meaning holds, as is the distinction between using it versus simply addressing a gay person. I'm kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV, and I sat her down and began explaining that this is a very bad word, and we shouldn't be calling people that, and that regardless, I'm not a girl, and because this is a bad word, she should apologize to me, because we don't act mean to each other in this family, and if I hear this again, I'm going to talk to her parents, and she's going to get in trouble. She said she won't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me, and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's a very bad word, and she's not to use it with me or in my presence, and that she should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did, because she's a really good kid. We talked some more, and I prodded her about other things her parents said, and from what I gather, getting info out of a 5-year-old being obviously a difficult and unreliable process, Nick, my BIL, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day and doing childcare, that cooking is a woman's duty, as is cleaning, and really most of the things I do around my house, and that I'm a girl. I interpret this as not really a man, because I do housework, and my wife earns more money than me. I explained to her the best I could that men and women could work from an office or from home, and that my wife or Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make them men, and vice versa. But I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. I didn't immediately bring it up with my sister, because I figured it would be a difficult conversation, and I didn't want to have it in front of the kids, and I wanted to talk it out with my wife first as well. I did talk to my wife that evening, and she seemed really upset as well. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. I called my sister and told her what happened, and she said that it's just a word, and I'm blowing it out of proportion. And obviously Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me. He is talking shit about me behind my back, to my niece and to her. And she is apparently very chill about this, rather than standing up for me. She said that was how Nick was, and I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to off, and if that was how she felt, she could pick up her own child from daycare, and hung up. I know it was really short notice and rude, but I really felt like I was being disrespected by people I did so much for over the years, and were my family. My wife said she understood, and that I shouldn't back down until I at least get a proper apology. The next 2 days were a weekend, and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of any messages or calls made me think she didn't take my words seriously, and this actually got me even more angry. The calls did come when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare, and I, obviously, didn't come. I dropped my own kids off and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty, but I was stewing for 2 days and figured letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed really appropriate and felt really good. Around noon when she called again, I did pick up. I was going to smugly tell her that I was ready for my apology and we would put it behind us, but I didn't get to. Instead, she went off on me about how I was irresponsible and I flaked, and she was so late for work because of me, to which I just said, "I told you I wasn't going to pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements." And she kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She kept calling and sending me texts about picking Tracy up from daycare, to which I said I will not be, then stopped replying. When I came to pick my kids up, Tracy was expecting me to take her as well, and I didn't, which was very rough, on me and her both. Like, I know it's not her fault and she's 5, and she suddenly doesn't get to go over to our place and play and have snacks. But at the same time, I didn't want to just let this thing go. I felt like I deserved an apology, and still do, so I explained that me and her mom were fighting. But I'll pick her up again when we work it out. She obviously didn't take it well, because she's 5. But I apologized, took my kids and left. Well, a bit later, I got a call from my mom. Barb roped her into picking up Tracy, but my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy, and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead, she also pulled a "you know how Nick is," To which I replied that the more I realize how Nick is, the less I like it, and if he thinks all this shit in general, and about me specifically, I sure as isn't going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion, and I told her I wasn't the one doing it, because all I asked for was a apology, and everyone else seemed to prefer all of this shit to just giving it to me, to which she said I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me, to which I said I was done, and to have fun with Tracy. That evening, I got a call from Nick himself, which I was hesitant about, but chose to answer on the off chance that I was actually about to get that apology. Nope. Apparently, my behavior is causing Barb great distress, and we're family, and how can I do this to my own sister? I told him that since we're family, how can he talk shit about me to his kid, which I take care of daily? And he said he was only joking, and it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me, and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was a and couldn't take a joke, and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to off and that I was done with him and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom, which I didn't answer. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for me being petty, and I told her that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price of her parents being ungrateful pieces of shit, to which she just yelled at me a bunch about how she was going to lose her job, and I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done, and unless her next message was an apology, I will be blocking her number, and it wasn't, so now I blocked her. Past few days, my mom's been picking up Tracy, and it's been really rough seeing her in daycare and explaining that grandma's going to pick her up, which she hates, and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place, and it's breaking my heart. But at the same time, I never got a single apology from anyone but the 5-yo, and I feel like letting this go would just be telling my family that it's okay to ignore my boundaries. But at the same time, I do love my niece, and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid, and none of it is her fault. AITA. Edit. Holy shit, you guys. Post barely been up 4 hours, and I am already so grateful for all your support and advice. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I considered, but now I think it might actually have merit, and it makes me very worried for her. At the same time, I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that that's just how Nick is, so stop overreacting isn't going to fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option. She's already having a hard time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to her about it. Ideally because she sees my point of view, but I'll settle for because she's desperate. I don't know what sort of childcare they'll be able to afford. They took out a large mortgage on a house they can barely afford. I will also make certain to stress upon Tracy that I love her, and none of this is her fault. Thank you all. OP is not an AH for standing up for himself. He has been helping his brother and his family, but in return, his brother, instead of being grateful, insulted him. OP's demand that his brother must apologize to him is completely justified, and his decision to not help with his niece until his brother apologizes is completely justified. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, OP's brother is an AH for refusing to apologize and disrespecting his brother in the first place. So, I would rate OP's brother 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the last story from Throwaway Wife Conspire. AITA for hating my wife's creepy hobby project? Okay, this sounds insane, but I swear my wife is totally normal otherwise, which makes this so strange to me. For context, we're both in our later 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she eats up true crime about spouses killing their cheating partners too. She just says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated, in her words. Well, a couple months back we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple in the neighborhood divorced because the husband cheated. No, there wasn't a murder or anything like that, but she became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or cookout, she would bring it up hoping there would be any new information. A month later is when I stumbled on the board in her home office. I was doing some cleaning, and I found a massive bulletin board facing away leaned up against the wall. Curiosity got the better of and I turned it around to find a literal fucking conspiracy board of all our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting each other like the fucking Pepe Sylvia meme. I was totally confused and asked what this was, and she told me it was a hobby she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all the images on Facebook or some social media and printed them out and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane, and she said maybe if I was doing it as a man, but she is just having harmless fun as a hobby, and she wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors. She just likes feeling like a detective. She told me to view it like a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out, but let it go, or tried. I thought about it a lot. Well, every now and then I admit to checking the board when cleaning, but just a couple days ago, I looked to see that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I am casual friends with. I asked her why she would add me if she thought I was cheating, and she said that was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said, if it makes me feel better, she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. Well, I got pissed and kind of lost my temper about it. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage will be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. Sorry for the long post. I am starting to feel bad and it hit me more than usual this morning. Should I apologize to her? And before you ask, no, I don't suspect her of cheating. Honestly, I wish she was because it would at least make more sense than this. AITA? Update. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Firstly, appreciate all of the concern and NTAs. It gave me the courage to approach her and tell her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Literally 2 days later. 2 days later. Hits the fan. Our happily married next-door neighbor finds a woman's bra under the bed that does not belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, which she still didn't trash like she promised. And of course the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all, and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there, and I swore it wasn't there last time I saw the board. So, either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point, or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective, and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it, and he said no, he would never. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said one day, while you were at work, his wife asked her to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was, so yes. I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the bra, and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said, don't worry. He still had the bra, and I looked at it. It was my wife's, but one I knew she almost never wore because it was from a lingerie set. I bought her one Christmas, she said was uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife and ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the bra and asked her what was going on. She played stupid, but I told her to cut the BS. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there. Either way, she was in trouble. She confessed to planting the bra and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of ruining just our marriage, she ruined our neighbors and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. I even showed the Reddit post which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated with her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I am barely speaking to my wife, and it is only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. I seriously need advice. Final update. It's been months since last update. Sorry, I've been busy. Long story short, my wife is in a mental health facility. After what had happened previously, I did not speak to my wife for a while. I tried to stay working or out of the house as often as I could. Well, A few weeks passed, and time made it seem like less and less of a big deal. Finally, my wife offered to take me out to a very nice dinner to make things up to me. She told me everything was behind her, and while I was avoiding her, she had actually started online therapy to get help and realized now what she did was wrong. I really believed her, and we had a great night. One thing led to another that night, and yeah, LOL. It took about 2 days after that for her to get a pregnancy test, and she texted me the positive result. Yeah, I know some of you already think I'm a moron, but it had been a rough year, and this made me really happy. I started getting very excited. We started talking about turning my home office to a baby room, looking up ways to prepare, booking appointments, planning a shower, etc. A really fun but whirlwind week. Unfortunately, she told me the first ultrasound was at a time I had to be at work, and she would have to go alone. Really bummed me out, and I asked her to reschedule, but she said it was the only availability. Well, that next week, she went, and I, waiting for an update or pictures or anything. Nothing. She came home and was super quiet, and I flipped out and got super worried that the worst had happened. I told her I understood she was probably in a lot of pain about something, but she had to tell me. She finally admitted, no, it wasn't a miscarriage, but she was actually pregnant for longer than she thought. Longer than the last time we did it. She actually got pregnant during the time I was avoiding her. Obviously, I was so mad and upset, and I couldn't understand why she would do this to me. But then I realized all the signs were there for so long, and all the comments telling me she was probably cheating was right. But I tried to keep a clear head for at least a second, because I really love my wife, and I couldn't believe it. I asked her who it could have been, and she actually said she didn't know. She said she hadn't done it with anyone during the time I was avoiding her. She swore it and also didn't know what this meant. I thought about it and realized if she was really pregnant for that long, her tummy should be showing, and it wasn't. I decided to call the place and ask them to confirm what they said. My wife told me it would be a waste of time, and she promised she heard them clearly, so I didn't do it that night. But I couldn't sleep that night without hearing it from the doctors myself. I called the clinic. She told me she went to the day before in the morning and asked them to confirm the results. They told me something worse than I expected. She had no visit. She was never there. I didn't understand that at all. Before I talked to my wife again, I did what I should have done in the first place and reverse image searched the pregnancy test image. Yeah, it was on Google from a random years-old Facebook post. I was again really mad at my wife and couldn't believe she would put me through all this. I confronted her about the picture and that I called the place and there was no appointment. I told her she had a pattern of lying and this was probably the end of our relationship. But she responded in a way I didn't expect. She burst into tears and went manic, which I did expect, but then said that she really had cheated on me and really was pregnant and that I had made this up in my head because I couldn't face what she did to me. She said she felt like the devil and Hitler and started sobbing and literally screaming at the top of her lungs. She locked herself in the bathroom and told me she was going to kill herself over what she did to me. I couldn't get the door open and freaked out. I called the cops and they broke the door down. She was not hurt, but she was really out of it. They took her to get a mental evaluation, and she told them everything there. She even started mixing in stuff about the board, and how she knew everyone around her was a cheater, so she had done the same because she was in an evil place. She promised them she was pregnant, but she didn't know who the father was. They tested her while in custody, and no pregnancy at all. They told me she was likely suffering from a form of schizophrenia, and actually genuinely believed that she was saying, and likely always had to some level, but it seemed to be getting worse. They said she had a symptom called self-accusation and needed help. Well, I got her in a facility last week and she is safe. They are making a little progress. I do not think she thinks she is pregnant anymore. I have visited a few times, but she is very withdrawn with me and says she feels too guilty to look me in the eye. I think there was definitely meddling at certain parts like planting evidence, but now I just feel terrible. I did not get her the help she needed when all the real signs were there. I hope her medication starts to help, and she can be normal again. And yeah, the neighborhood gossip is having a field day with all this. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this is my last update. Thanks for all the help. Edit. My wife has been to the clinic before and I am an authorized contact. I can ask about her appointments. Also, local area, so I know the front desk lady. She was as confused as I was when she saw there were no apts scheduled and no record of her going. Why don't all you losers shove a fork up your ass, Anne? OP is not an AH for standing up to the unsettling and abnormal behavior of his wife. OP's demand for his wife to stop and his concern for her mental health were justified. I think OP's wife needs to see a psychologist ASAP. If OP's wife does not have a mental problem, she is an AH for such creepy behavior, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. In this scenario, OP is not an AH, and I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.